All right, to kind of paint the picture of what it was that I was doing in the SEAL teams on the last deployment I was involved in, my team was out in Iraq, and given the task of hunting down men that make suicide vests and those roadside bombs, IEDs. And while we're out there, we're working with this group called the ISOF. It's the Iraqi Special Operations Forces. And one of our goals with these guys is to simply teach them how to fight their own fights. And so we figure the best way to do that is to train them on base, but also go outside the wire and fight side by side with them. And we're coming up on what looked like just enough time on the calendar to do maybe one more operation. And we weren't really sure if the ISOF was ready for us to pass that baton off to them. So we decided for this final operation, why don't we try and make it a sort of graduation operation? We'll let them plan the whole thing from the ground up, and we'll be there with them just in case things go bad. They wind up coming up on this source that tells them about a man that's an Iraqi policeman by day, but at night, back home, as it turns out, he's one of these bomb makers that we're looking for. And so they present to us the plan, how they want to approach the house, get in, grab this guy, extract. It all checks out, looks pretty good. But they did have one complaint. They felt they got shot at more than we SEALs did, and they were convinced that it was the color of our uniforms. And so their request to us was that we would take off our American uniforms and put on their ISOF colored uniforms. And so we were like, all right, that's fine. Don't mind going home, with a souvenir, an ISOF uniform. We get their uniforms on. One unique thing I know about this operation that made it truly different than every other operation, I couldn't help but to think about it. I knew this is it. This is the final operation, which also means I know just a matter of days from now, I'll be back in my hometown surfing in the ocean. But here's what none of us really knew about that night, was that we were actually being set up the entire time to get thrown the absolute worst circumstances we'd been in on this entire deployment, as we're being set up on an ambush. And we suddenly find ourselves engaging in this gun battle for our lives. And it truly was the team's ability to shoot, move, and communicate and do what we do best as SEALs that led to the obvious conclusion I sit here alive before you this afternoon. But I think we also need to remember that it doesn't always work out that way, that freedom isn't free, and it's paid for in the currency of our soldiers' blood on the battlefield. More on how that night played out in just a little bit, but I want to share with you my road to becoming a SEAL as well. And so fresh out of high school, just like so many young men out there, I wasn't really sure about what it was that I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know what my identity was. And I find myself failing all my classes, and it's my own fault. I'm not showing up. I'm not studying. I'm not going to class. I'm ditching, hanging out with friends. But finally, that moment comes where I got to face the music. I'm pulling into the school parking lot, and it just hits me as I'm about to take finals that I didn't study for. Like, wow, I got this sense that I'm turning out to be a loser. I mean, the kind of guy that no young man wants to be. And so I'm thinking, how do I turn this around? I got all my peers passing me by. I'm not even making it at the local community college, but I do know this. I want to do something significant with my life. And so as I'm brainstorming, sitting there in my truck, that's where I came up with the plan. I know how to turn this whole thing around. I want to go join the military. I want to be a part of the most elite. Who's stopping me? Who's stopping me from becoming a Navy SEAL? So, of course, I got to let my dad know some bad news and good news as I presented it to him. I let him know the bad news, what was going on that year at school, not passing any of these classes. Then I present the good news. And, of course, he, being a good father, thinking that maybe your son is just making a rash decision here. He's trying to inform me that it's not what I think it is, that joining the military, if you sign up and then you find out it's not for you, or suppose you quit SEAL training, it's not like you could just get out. You're still going to be in the military. He's letting me know you're probably going to pick up a job like chipping paint off some boat. And so I know actions speak louder than words. I got to show this. And so I'm preparing, doing everything I can. And my dad, he invites me inside one day. And maybe he can tell that I'm taking this kind of serious, because he says, so you really want to do this, huh? You want to be a SEAL? I'm telling him, yeah, Dad, I want to be a SEAL. And he goes, great. Well, I set up a workout for you with the Navy SEAL. Check out my computer screen. I'll never forget looking at the screen and seeing this little one-liner in an email. It just says, can Chad come out and play tomorrow? And so I'm a little suspicious. I'm saying, Dad, you met some guy off the internet who claims to be a Navy SEAL, and he says he wants to play with me, and you're arranging this thing right now. And he goes, no, this is for real. And I'm still doubting it. I'm like, you can't trust everything someone tells you on the internet, Dad. No, this is for real. So I find myself agreeing to go. Well, as it turns out, there's more of a conversation that took place on the phone prior to that email. On a phone conversation with that man, my dad's informing him that I, his son, want to be a Navy SEAL, but I have no idea what I'm signing up for. My dad thinks I don't know what I'm getting involved in. And so he was asking this man if he could just do him a really big favor. Would he be willing to meet up with me? And what he was asking him to do, he's saying, I'll pay you to just crush him. Just bury him, beat this desire of becoming a SEAL out of him. So off I go to Oceanside, California, where I'm meeting up with a Navy SEAL in a beach parking lot. And I find myself out in the middle of the wetlands going for a run with this guy. As he lets me take the lead, he catches up to me, and then suddenly the beating begins. This guy physically assaults me, punches me in the stomach, knocks me to the ground. He's jumping on top of me like a wild man. He has me by my shirt. I still remember the sound of the threads of my shirt ripping. He's screaming in my face as he's on top of me. There's poof of dirt up all around me. And you got to put yourself in my shoes for a moment here. Here I am thinking some guy, my dad met off the internet, now he's got me all alone in the wetlands. He's attacking me. I'm thinking child predator, like this is going down right now. And so as he's screaming in my face, that's when I hear these words came through that really changed everything. He says, you want to be a Navy SEAL, you better stay 3 paces behind me. And there was something about that moment where a light went on. I realized this is it and this is for real. And if I quit right now, this is the sense that I got. I'll forever be a quitter. I knew the way I respond in this moment is going to affect the trajectory of the rest of my life. And so I reaffirmed that initial attitude of just die before you quit. And I'm getting up, going after him. This goes on for miles as he's continuing just to try and destroy me on this run, shake me, get rid of me. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm hanging in there. We finally get to this point where he circles up and he's pacing back and forth. And the guy looks like he wants to fight me. And then he asked me a simple question. He says, hey, if we would have gone another mile or 2, would you have stayed with me? And I just told him, Scott, I'll die before I quit. And so he just gets this big smile on his face. He goes, great. You want to meet up again for the workout tomorrow? And that was really the beginning of it. From that point forward, I began to meet up with this Navy SEAL, Scott Helvenston, who mentored me. And he's an extraordinary Navy SEAL. And I say that because of, well, amongst a lot of other reasons, here's some of the records that he holds. He's the youngest man to ever make it through SEAL training, holds the record to this day, 17 years old, completed it. He's a world champion pentathlete. He's the fastest Navy SEAL on the SEAL training obstacle course. He's the only man to beat the Beast on a TV program at the time called Man vs. Beast, where he raced a chimpanzee through an obstacle course and pulled ahead of the monkey on monkey bars. This is my mentor. This is the guy that's training me, and he got me ready. And so I sign up, I got a date, it's set, I'm shipping off for boot camp, and he took an opportunity, as he put it, to go overseas one last time. He's on the phone with me. He's about to go. And so he's telling me on the phone, all right, Junior, I'm about to go do this thing. He's referring to going off to Iraq. And he says, I just want you to know something I've never told anybody I've ever trained before. I know you're going to make it through SEAL training. And so to hear those words from my mentor, I can't tell you how much that meant to me, other than I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to prove him right and just to get this road started. Next time I see my mentor, I see him on national television. I'm looking at a picture of him smiling. Days later, in the lower third of the screen, I see his birth date, followed by a dash. It says March 31st, 2004. And then followed by these scenes as these insurgents that had ambushed the vehicle he was in recorded what they had done to him and 3 other Americans as they're dragging them through the streets of Fallujah, hanging them upside down from the Euphrates River Bridge, setting their bodies on fire, and then chanting into a camera, Fallujah is the graveyard of Americans, repeatedly. Fallujah is the graveyard of Americans. This is just days before I'm shipping off for boot camp. And I think pretty needless to say, I'll never have the words to describe what that moment and all the surrounding moments were like. It's one of those moments that certainly changes you as a human being. You don't go forward the same person from there. And I'm not going to lie, at the time, a big part of me had a chip on my shoulder. I had this sense of revenge. And I think that there is a takeaway that we could discuss here. It has to do with how we deal with adversity. That's one form of adversity. Adversity comes in a lot of different forms, and anyone watching right now has faced adversity. And here's the thing we have to come to grips with, is that we're not done with it. There will be more. I don't know what it is, but something's going to invade my life again, like a tsunami. It's going to run me or even my family over like a tornado, and I can't control it because you don't get to custom pick the adversity that you face. But here, we do have a choice. You still are the determiner. Even though you can't determine what adversity you face, you determine whether or not that adversity will be operating as a wing or a weight in your life. Will you allow it to be a weight that just sinks you, leaves you knocked down, never to get back up again? Or do you find a wing in the moment, which is just a way to rise to the occasion, to get back up to your feet? In the SEAL teams, it's what we call forged by adversity. And so adversity will either cause you to fail or you will be forged by it. And so you're looking for the wing. I don't know what it is that's going to hit me later on, but immediately I'm trying to find that wing. It does nobody any good for me just to allow it to sink me down. It does you no good. And so I think that forging process really began in this particular instance, remembering my mentor's last words to me. Junior, I know you're going to make it through SEAL training. So I had his name written on the inside of my hat, and he was a constant reminder and a motivation to dig deep when the going got tough in SEAL training. I started with BUDS Class 254, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's the most difficult military school in the world, hands down, and the attrition rate speaks for itself. The numbers truly speak for themselves. I started with a class of 173 guys that all vowed the same thing. We die before we quit. And out of that 173, by graduation day, there's only 13 of that original class number still standing there. And that graduation day, this is the moment, going back to that parking lot in the junior college, if I could just become a SEAL, this would turn everything around. I felt I'd be set forever. And then doing it for so much more in honor and memory of my mentor, walking in his footsteps, I really felt like everything was going to be on the up and up from this point forward. I finally achieved the ultimate. Well, not only was it one of the happiest moments of my life, I'll tell you this, it didn't take more than 24 hours before I felt like the wind came out of the sail. I began to circle the drain, and everything just began to go downhill from that point forward. And I couldn't wrap my mind around why at the time. I just achieved the ultimate. And it was years later that I heard these words spoken by a Christian philosopher. And I thought those words hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I experienced. These are the words. He says, one of the loneliest moments a man will ever experience is when he's achieved that which he thought would deliver the ultimate, and in the end, it lets him down. What he's referring to right there is something I believe, again, everyone listening and watching right now is familiar with, at least to some degree. It's the human condition, the human predicament, that idea that the grass is always greener on the other side, never really fully satisfied where we're at. What do you want, man? We feel like we just want a little bit more. And so we buy into this belief, if I just had this job, if I could just make this much money, if maybe I didn't have a mortgage, or maybe what I need is a significant other in my life, a spouse, or perhaps we have to surround ourselves with some kids. We keep moving the bar thinking that's going to be the thing that satisfies us, that gives us fulfillment. But what happens is you get there, you eat that moment up, you're satisfied like you thought you would be, but then the satisfaction doesn't last like you thought it would. And so what do? Well, we don't panic. We just kind of think for a little bit, and after a little bit of introspect, a light bulb goes off. The reason this didn't give me lasting fulfillment, it's simple. I didn't go for something big enough. I need to raise the bar. I need to go to the next rung of the ladder, climb up the mountain higher. That's exactly what we do. We get there, we eat that moment up, we drink it up. You're satisfied, but what happens? Hungry and thirsty all over again. It's like a vicious cycle, and seemingly there just is no end. But there is an end point, and that's the whole point to that quote about one of the loneliest moments. See, the big question is this: what happens when you finally arrive at a place where you no longer, like all the previous times before, can say, well, I know what I'll do. I'll just go to the next rung of the ladder. No, you can't do that this time. Why not? You're at the last rung of the ladder. You can't say, well, I'll just climb up the mountain a little bit higher. No, you can't do that this time. You're at the peak of the mountain. There is no more elevation to climb. And yet, just like all the other times before, you're hungry and thirsty for more. But tragically, unlike all the other times, this time, there is no next to move on to. One of the loneliest moments a man, or you could say woman, will ever face is when they have achieved that which they thought would deliver the ultimate. In the end, it lets them down.